Hello, everybody, and welcome to Powerful Stuff. You guys, this episode is going to be, I know you're not going to believe it when I say really powerful, or maybe you do believe it because you're a loyal listener and you just know that that's how we roll here. But we today, on this day, are going to alchemize our imposter syndrome. And what is imposter syndrome? Let's just start there. Usually when we are feeling like we're about to expand into something new and we're like, do I have enough qualifications? Other people are better at this than me. What if I'm found out? I shouldn't be here. I don't deserve to be here. That's imposter syndrome. And we've all probably felt it at some point in our life before because we are all part of the human experience. But I actually like to say that when we're celebrating imposter syndrome, to celebrate. We should celebrate because it means that we're stepping into the unknown. We're doing something outside of our comfort zone. We're doing something that makes us feel like a little scared. And as Carolyn Elliott says, fear is excitement without the breath. So today we're going to look at our imposter syndrome with whatever area it might be coming up in, right? It's not just professionally when we're like going for that promotion or pivoting careers. As I talked about last week, with my pivoting from being an international journalist to a beverage founder to a coach to a podcast host. But it can also come up in areas of life around romantic relationships, a community, feeling like an imposter in a community or feeling like you don't deserve to belong there. So we're just going to eradicate it with so much love, with so much compassion, with so much light and darkness, because, we love doing the full picture here at Powerful Stuff. And when I say the word alchemize imposter syndrome, I know alchemize is a spiritual buzzword that we throw around a lot. I literally even wrote a song called called Alchemy, and Taylor Swift then copied me. No, I'm joking. Taylor, if you're listening, I love you. Both of our songs, Alchemy, are amazing. And would love to have you at a Powerful Stuff event. But besides the point, alchemy is like converting darkness into light, right? It's like the mixture of different elements coming together to form precious metals. And so through heat, through the elixir of our transformation. So we're going to alchemize imposter syndrome today. And it's something that I do with all of my coaching clients. And specifically, I have a whole module on it in my group coaching course, the upgrade, where we go through it together. And if you're like, I want to do that, but I can't right now, and I'm listening to Powerful Stuff and I want more, I actually have an Alchemizing Imposter Syndrome mini course on my website as well. But we're going to go through it all today. And those are just, if you're like, give me more, as Britney Spears would say. Okay, I digress, guys. Isn't one life just one digression? Anyways, so what we're going to do is we're going to alchemize our imposter syndrome in a few steps. And imposter syndrome comes up for me when I'm taking a bigger swing. And again, it's to celebrate it because it's just like an inner version of us, our younger self, an inner child, trying to keep us safe in the familiar because it's comfortable, because it's consistent. And what we're going to do with imposter syndrome is we're going to remind it of all the times that we were beginners before and it worked out. None of us came out of the womb an expert on anything, but what we all have done throughout our life has been put in different situations and used our resilience, our courage, our adaptability to persevere. And those are the qualities that are most important to remind yourself of as you're overcoming imposter syndrome. And then you can turn it into fuel for whatever you're about to do next, because you're like, holy shit, I'm a badass. I remember this other time that I was doing this other thing in this other field and I got through it. And if I got through that, I can get through this. You feel me? Okay. So number one is let your imposter syndrome speak. Step one is just letting it speak. We've talked about this before on Powerful Stuff. If you don't let your, shadow side or inner self speak, they become louder, they throw temper tantrums. So just sit your imposter syndrome down, just put them on your lap, and you just say, what's on your little heart, I've been talking in a Southern accent from time to time recently. Don't mind me, guys. But just sit your imposter syndrome down and ask them what they're telling you. Ask them to get it out. Let them know they're safe. There's no judgments here. And, if I'm thinking about my imposter syndrome, maybe I'll think about, this year I said I wanted to do a TEDx, or I love putting out songs. For example, I'll share my imposter syndrome with these two things. Like, so what my imposter syndrome is saying to me for like the TEDx is like, everything has already been said before. You haven't spent like a decade in one specific career. You know, who are you to say those things? Like, who knows if what you're saying is even original, right? That might be what my imposter syndrome around like wanting to do a TEDx would say. And then around putting out my music, which I love doing and I do for joy and my full creative expression. But, you know, in wanting to nurture that childhood dream, sometimes when I put it out or want to perform or submit somewhere to perform, my imposter syndrome says, people are doing music full time. Like, you just do it as a hobby. Like, you don't deserve to be here. Like, everyone's like playing guitar every day and writing songs every day. You're just doing it like every fortnight. Like, so therefore you're not as good of a musician. So it's not to say we actually believe these things, but when we let them run rampant in our head without giving them a voice, we can sometimes start to, not be able to distinguish them between them and our actual inner truth. So I just like to write my imposter syndrome out in my journal or say it out loud like I just did there, because when we say it out loud, it loses its power over us. It's like bringing the monsters out from under the bed, realizing that they're not as big as we thought they were. So those were mine for my two. So you go ahead and pause this recording and you ask your imposter syndrome, what do you have to say to me? Tell it to my face. I fucking love you. I'm here to listen, and write it down. Okay, go. Wow. I hope that felt cleansing and that you got it all out. And whether it was for something personal or something professional, you just let that little imposter syndrome speak, and you can kind of look at what it said, and you can note that there's not, as much truth to it as it feels like sometimes when it's just bouncing around in your head. And then the second step, guys, is to remind ourselves of all the times that we were a beginner elsewhere before and it worked out. What were the other times that you were scared or you felt like an imposter and you did it anyway? You put that one foot in front of the other, ever so slightly out of your comfort zone, and it worked out. Because what we're doing here, as I said earlier in the podcast, is we're reminding ourselves of the qualities that we have, the adaptability that we have. So I'll start. The times that I've, been a beginner and it's worked out, golly gee, there are so many, right? Going from a tiny private school in elementary school to a public school where there were hundreds of kids in 6th grade, and it was really scary. And I had a year where I didn't have a lot of friends, but then that shaped me into who I am. When I never in 8th grade. Okay. I'm like really winding the clocks back, but in 8th grade, when I decided I want to try out for the cheerleading team, because bless my little heart, I thought cheerleading equaled popularity. Newsflash, doesn't, but I, took myself to my first cheer practice and learned how to do back tucks and layouts and flip flop back tucks, like things I never thought I could do a year prior to that. And that was way out of my comfort zone. In high school, times that I was a beginner and it worked out, like I submitted an article to the Houston Chronicle because I thought they should have a teen reporter. And I was afraid of getting a no, but then I kept submitting and I ended up being their teen columnist. And part of that ended up getting me into Harvard, which is also a side story, but like that ties in with the cheerleading, which I'll just tell you guys now because we're on the side quest journey today. But yeah, in high school, I was a cheerleader because I thought it would help me be popular, as per going from not having a lot of friends in a private school to this public school. And cheer practice was every day. It took up a lot of time. And then when I went to cheer in high school, I landed on my head during a back tuck, and thankfully, knock on wood, retroactively, I wasn't hurt, but it spooked me and I wasn't able to tumble again. And then I became the worst cheerleader on the squad, quote unquote, because I couldn't tumble and I felt ostracized. So I realized I can't define my self-worth based on like being on the cheer team or not. So that's when I actually submitted articles to the Houston Chronicle, because I was like, I want to find something else to do that doesn't, where I determine my self-worth. And they started publishing my articles, and those articles ended up being the supplemental package I submitted to Harvard to get me into Harvard. So that was also a winding journey and a great display of overcoming imposter syndrome at every turn, right? For firstly trying out for cheerleading, and then for writing for the Houston Chronicle, and then getting into Harvard and overcoming my own slew of imposter syndrome there. And then to just fast forward, because there's a lot I could go through in high school around imposter syndrome, in my 20s, like going to different countries in Latin America and Africa for the first time ever. After high school, I'd never traveled alone, let alone in different countries. And after high school, I traveled alone to Honduras during a coup d'etat, working at a home for children there. And that was my first taste of the travel bug. And then after that, I went to many other Latin American countries on my own, like Brazil, and lived in Brazil, lived in other African countries. And then adaptability around like becoming an international journalist from there, starting a beverage company with no prior experience as a founder. I didn't even know what a convertible note was for fundraising. I didn't even know like what was required of me when I was running an alcohol company in terms of like the legalities around alcohol. And I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. And even into my coaching, right? Overcoming that imposter syndrome fear of like, who will my Harvard friends think I am, like as a failed startup founder becoming a coach? Like, who am I to share these things? But I did it anyways. And lo and behold, those Harvard friends were some of my first clients. So, wow, guys, we just really went on a Meredith memory lane journey. Thank you for being on that powerful journey with me. But yeah, now step 2 is remind yourself of all the other times in your life that you were a beginner and it worked out. And they can be personal, they can be professional, they can be travel related. Like I just showed you, they could be about a skill, right? Maybe you were never done pottery before, and like you showed up at your first class and the teacher had to throw your mug for you, or whatever the pottery lingo is. And now you can make tiny, delicate bowls and sell them on Etsy, whatever it might be. Okay, guys, step 2, let's go. Wow. Hopefully you look back at that list now and you're like, wait, I am a badass. I have done all these things before. And if I did these things before, those innate qualities in me do not go away. They do not disappear. And if I did those things before, I can do them again, and I will do them again. And so now step 3 is we're going to just take a long, hard look at the cost. What is the cost for yourself if you don't do this thing that you're ready to expand into? What is the cost if you let your imposter syndrome get the best of you? For yourself, what is it robbing you of? Is it robbing you of your joy? Is it robbing you of your potential? Is it robbing you of that knowing that like you have what it takes and you didn't do it? Is it robbing you of getting to show your children that you are living in your passion? What is the cost for you? And I want you to really sit with this and think about 80-year-old you looking back and being like, fuck, I didn't do that. Wanting to shake yourself and be like, why didn't I do that? And just like maybe even closing your eyes, connecting with that 80-year-old version of you. And then I want you to ask yourself, what is the cost to the world if I don't do this? Not just to myself, but what am I robbing the world of? For example, for me, going back to the TEDx or music example, the cost that I'm robbing the world of is my ideas, my powerful stuff that I want to bring to the world around inner and outer connection. I'm robbing people of potentially finding middle ground with each other. I'm robbing people of finding middle ground with themselves. I'm robbing myself of feeling like fulfilled in terms of like, I have these ideas. I know I want to get out. I know I want to get them out of my head and into the world. And similarly with music, I'd be robbing people of songs that came from the heart, and I'd be robbing myself of like my fullest creative expression. So just go ahead and take a moment. What are you robbing yourself of? What are you robbing the world of? And just let that sink in. Let that heaviness sink in. Let it sink in. And it might feel icky. It might feel shitty. And that is a-okay, guys, because it kind of has to feel shitty. We have to kind of realize what's at stake as we move forward. So for the next step 4 and 5, we're going to close our eyes for a very brief meditation, just closing your eyes with the feeling of that weight, knowing what that cost is, taking a deep breath in and exhaling it out. Another breath in, breathing in what that cost is for you and exhaling it out. And then third and deepest breath in, imagining you're bringing the heat, the fire, all the knowing of all the qualities you have, all the capabilities that you've already done things before where you didn't know how they'd turn out, exhaling that out. And as you breathe, nice and slow, and you notice the cost of what happens when you let your imposter syndrome get the best of you. Imagine pulling this heaviness out of your chest, keeping your eyes closed, imagine pulling it out of your chest, all this heaviness, holding it in your hands, feeling the weight of that, and then dumping it into a cauldron in front of you like a big witch's bowl. And there's a beautiful magic wand there, and imagine picking up that wand and stirring the bowl, alchemizing it, all of the cost, the weight of you not doing it, mixed with all of your unique capabilities, mixed with you stepping into your power right now to be sitting here and alchemizing your imposter syndrome. And as you stir this pot, it turns in to this beautiful molten golden liquid. And in this golden liquid, you see shimmers of yourself on the other side of this imposter syndrome. How you've used it and harnessed it as fuel. You know, maybe it was a journey toward loving yourself, doubling down on love for yourself that needed to happen right now. Maybe it was a journey of reminding yourself of those qualities and capabilities. But seeing yourself on the other side of this imposter syndrome right now, noticing how you're showing up in your full light as a beacon in this scene. What are you doing in this new role or this new community or this new thing? And how are you living in your power in that? What is that radiance coming out of you? Feeling into that now as you look into this cauldron of this golden liquid. And as you are fully expressed, how is it helping and touching those around you? How are you giving them permission to step into their power? How are you elevating the world around you, letting this beautiful, magical liquid show you a vision of that too? And as you see that, lighting yourself, lighting those around you, asking that version of you in the beautiful liquid, how do they need to trust you to take this next step? What can you do so they can fully trust you to take this next step into the unknown? Trusting whatever they say. And then asking them for the perfect next step that you can take to step into this expansion. What is the perfect next step to move out of this imposter syndrome and into this vision? And remember, this next step can be so tiny, just as long as it's the ever so slightest of a stretch. Thanking that version of yourself. Thanking this beautiful golden liquid, taking a deep breath in And open mouth exhale. Another deep breath in. And exhale, sighing it out as you open your eyes and come back into this space. Wow. Now that you've alchemized the imposter syndrome in your cauldron, in your meditation, go ahead and for step 4, write, how are you uniquely positioned to do this thing? Why can no one do it better than you? What is your unique offering and gift? So in step 3, we acknowledge the cost, but now we acknowledge why you. Why are you perfectly situated, perfectly unique to do this thing? Thinking about all the unique stories that you've had, all the times that you've overcome things like imposter syndrome or heartbreak or not feeling enough, and how every part of you, your uniqueness, your laugh, your humor, your personality is perfectly preparing you. And how no one can do it like you. You are it, as one girl in one of my cohorts said. I am it. I just love that. Okay, wow. Powerful step 4, everyone. We are unique. There's this demotivator calendar that's like a snowflake, and it's like, you are unique, just like the rest of us. I always thought that's hilarious because it's like we are all unique collectively and individually. Isn't that wonderful? Anyways, but it's motivating. Not a demotivator calendar. Forget I said that, guys. It's motivating. You are unique. You are stepping into your unique power. And now step 5 is, what is that tiny step that you are going to take to alchemize imposter syndrome? What is that tiny shift that you can take this week that's just ever so slightly out of your comfort zone? What are you going to do for it? It doesn't have to be big, but thinking back to what came to you in the meditation, as I've said in our manifestation episode, like intention without action is just wishful thinking. So we can listen to this whole episode. We can do the imposter syndrome course, but what really is going to shift us into this new reality is to take action. What is that new thing that you're going to do to step into that? For my TEDx, I am literally going to write an outline of things that I could talk about for my TEDx or my experience that I could create. And for my song, I'm going to put out my song in 2 weeks, my new song that I recorded, 2 out of 7. Maybe even start a new Instagram account where I'm just posting all my music so I can post it more freely. So what is that thing for you that you can do to actually take aligned action to alchemize this imposter syndrome? And by the way, guys, I just like to note too that when we're experiencing imposter syndrome, not only to celebrate it, but it can also be the other side of the same coin of comparison. So if you're experiencing comparison, you can kind of take yourself through these steps as well. What is the comparison saying to you? What are other things like that you've done before that have worked out? How might the comparison be showing you what you're ready to expand into? Kind of like the imposter syndrome is showing you what you're ready to expand into. If you don't act on the thing that you're having comparison around, what does it rob the world of? What does it rob you of? How are you uniquely prepared to do what only you can do? And then what is your next step, right? And so when we're having comparison, there can be someone else involved usually, and usually they're there to show us what's possible. So they might be triggering us and we might find it annoying, intellectually, externally, but what it's really doing is it's showing us, okay, it's time to take action. So I just like to make note of that as you're experiencing imposter syndrome, sometimes we can get little flare-ups of comparison, and we can just run them through these 5 steps. And just to reiterate, guys, step 1, let your imposter syndrome speak. Step 2, acknowledge all the times you were a beginner before and it worked out. You are amazing. You've done it before. You can do it again. Step 3, what is the cost to you if you don't take action? And what is the cost to the world? And just sit with the heaviness of that. We can't afford not to, guys. Step 4, how are you uniquely positioned to do this thing that only you can do? And then step 5, what is that one action that you will take? We did it. We alchemized imposter syndrome. So proud of you. Please let me know, what is your action step? I would love to hold you accountable. Please hold me accountable. So grateful for all of you. I hope that this was as powerful for you as it was for me always, and that everyone's having a flourishing, thriving summer. This is the perfect time to be taking that summer heat and turning it into power, turning it into action. And I will see you all next week for more powerful stuff. Mwah.